Welcome to Wednesday Newsday, your #1 resource for the entire week's worth of VR news. Okay, I know, it's been more than a month since the last Tuesday Newsday, and then I'd come back and it's not even on a Tuesday and the whole freaking industry's falling apart. But hey, a new slick intro, I guess. Look, I'll explain all of what's going on later in the video, but right now there's a few things that we have to talk about. We've got some really good stuff and we've got some really bad stuff. Plus the PSVR 2 launched today. Nonetheless, a lot is happening in VR right now, and this is a jam-packed comeback, so let's just get right into the news. Before we get into the really crazy heavy stuff that's going on, let's just start with a few exciting projects that caught my eye this past week. Starting with this super cheap VR hardware mod that is looking to increase the perceived field of view of just about any VR headset. This is ShodaVR's Starlight project. Basically the same idea as an ambilight for a TV, using LEDs around the peripheral of the TV to extend the colors beyond the normal screen size. Just imagine that idea but crammed into a VR headset. Using LEDs placed around the lenses, this is pretty much just a super cheap way to fake a much wider field of view. And not only cheap in terms of cost, I mean this is only around 10 to 30 bucks to implement. I mean it's just LEDs and an Arduino, but also cheap in terms of performance. You're not actually rendering anything extra. So this has pretty much just been shown on the Index, but I'm definitely gonna be testing this out on more headsets. It's just a pretty awesome way to squeeze out a little more immersion out of your headset, even if it's just perceived field of view. And I'm sure to some people this may even be a little annoying, but I'll have to try it out myself before I make any judgments. I should also say that this is by far not the first time this has ever been done or thought about. Probably every year or two this same thing pops up for VR headsets. In fact, I'm pretty sure Meta has a patent for this somewhere, but that probably just means that this is a really compelling idea that needs more exploration. Next up, we gotta talk about a brand new full body tracking method that's turning out to be cheaper than Hardware X, of course cheaper than base stations and Vive trackers, compatible with any VR headset, and maybe even potentially standalone, and potentially more accurate than something like Mocappy. This is Stonx. So I'm currently working on a full video covering these things. I do have them in hand, or I guess on body, but I'm still in the middle of testing them, so if you're interested in that video, then hit the bell. But basically, these are base stationless, IMU-based full body trackers that are currently on Indiegogo. So think legs wirelessly with Quest 2 and no base stations, of course. And you know, this is just a really crazy time to be interested in full body tracked VR. We have never had so many options. From Slime, which supposedly has been massively improved, to Hardware X, to Stonx, Sony with Mocappy, it's actually crazy right now. But I think now it's time we talk about what's been going on with VR at the industry level, now that we have some fun stuff out of the way. Because things have not only been kind of weird, but they've actually been pretty scary. In fact, this string of news that I'm about to go through is objectively the worst string of news I have ever seen while covering the VR industry for the past 4 years. Things are pretty rough. So the entire VR industry is cutting back big time. And here's the rundown of just the past few weeks. Microsoft has laid off over 10,000 employees specifically targeting XR. Basically, their entire HoloLens, Windows Mixed Reality, and VR teams are gone. Also meaning Altspace, their social VR platform, is getting completely shut down, actually for the second time. Meta is axing one of their most popular VR games, breaking apart communities because they don't have enough resources to keep them running. Echo. Other VR games as a service are failing and getting shut down. I mean, Nerf VR, which just released in August, a paid game with a huge IP behind it that had full season passes, is already shutting down, bringing down the studio behind it as well. Another huge round of Meta XR layoffs are happening right now, and that's beyond the original 10,000 layoff spree. Reportedly, Sony has cut PSVR 2 production numbers because of poor pre-order numbers. And that one was actually refuted by Sony, but to be honest, what company would ever say, yeah, pre-orders haven't met expectations? Of course they're going to deny it. And honestly, either could be true. But hold on, there's more. Tencent, which has been working on their own VR headset platform, recently stated that after sobering economic outlooks, that the investment cost, lack of short-term profitability, and general lack of strategy to enter the XR industry has led them to scrap their entire VR platform plans. And in a crazy turn of events, Tencent is allegedly now in talks with Meta to possibly bring the Quest 2 into China, which I honestly never saw coming. And while great for Meta and Tencent, Tencent spells some really terrible news for Pico, pretty much Meta's only competition, a company that is already in big trouble as is. After an exclusive Europe and Asia release, for some reason, the Pico 4 ended up selling significantly less units than they'd originally planned, leading them to cut down production of headsets by 30%, and very recently it's been announced that Pico themselves are laying off about a third of their entire company. Okay, so after hearing all of that in a row, that's pretty depressing if you care about VR. And I gotta ask, is this really what happens when I don't make a Tuesday Newsday for a few weeks? I come back and everything's burning, the whole industry is collapsing. And that's a joke, but seriously, I think everything that's happening right now is a very healthy reality check. At least long term, it's gonna be healthy. Because let's be real, the VR industry has been extremely artificially pumped the past few years by advertisements that oversell VR, and of course the cheap subsidized headsets at an extremely unrealistic price. And looking at all this news, I think we're really going to remember the beginning of 2023 as essentially the Metaverse bubble pop. It's not pretty, it's not something that a lot of people want to admit. I mean, you'll never hear a big VR company get on board with this idea, but it's the truth. Tens of thousands, like 50,000-ish XR industry people just got laid off. Billions of dollars are lost, whole companies are folded and bankrupt. Look, a bubble popped. People and investors got a little Metaverse crazy, invested way too much, hired way too much, then made bad decisions that nobody wanted, and now we're left here wondering what's next. And I have a pretty good feeling I know exactly what's next, and we'll talk about that. But first, I think it's time for a meme break! Isn't this nice, son? Just us and nature. Can't we play Call of Duty? Shut up and pass me more firewood. Actually, just one more. Sorry, but I just found this hilarious. So PSVR 2 launched today, right? And some Meta executives decided to sling out an email to press with this line. 42 out of the 49 launch window titles for PSVR 2 are already available on or also coming to Meta Quest 2, with many of them brought to life through Meta funding. Okay, and now back to the news. Now it's time for the positive part of this episode. Yeah, all of this happened, but we're still here, and I think this industry brings enough value to the table that it's never gonna go anywhere. Yeah, we're gonna go through ups and downs, but right now we're looking at a much more realistic VR industry that's healthier and stronger and can grow organically, which I think is important, not through these fake ads that don't even show what VR is like right now. And all bubbles pop, and there's also no saying that things aren't gonna get worse even, but we can look at where things are looking good. And we'll start with some actually good news regarding Pico. I think the big issue with the Pico 4, and probably a big reason why its sales have suffered, beyond not coming to North America of course, is that the store catalog is really lacking. And part of that has been because it's not the easiest thing to port games over to the Pico store. And this is all about to change with Pico officially supporting the Open XR standard that basically the entire industry has adopted. It just makes development of cross-platform titles significantly easier. So I wouldn't be surprised if after this announcement, many more games come to the Pico 4 this year compared to the last. And also, I know that people have been waiting and asking about my Pico 4 review, and I'm still working on it. But first, coming soon, I am actually going to be doing a torture test like I did on the Quest 2 with it. I mean, it only makes sense, they're direct competitors. So keep on the lookout for that, but I am still working on that Pico review. It'll be good, I promise. But there's also some other really great news this week, something that I think we all already know. Officially, the PlayStation VR 2 has launched today. Obviously, this is a pretty huge moment since the original PSVR is still one of the best-selling VR headsets of all time, and this is a massive upgrade, albeit a very expensive one. But it is pushing for the thing that people really want right now: AAA, big, beautiful content and games like Horizon. And I gotta say, Gran Turismo 7, which is also getting VR support, just looks absolutely insane on PSVR 2. And I also gotta be honest, I definitely have reserved expectations for the performance of the PSVR 2, not like game performance, but market performance. Like, I don't think it's gonna change the industry overnight at all. The launch catalog is a little too small and the price is a little too high, in my opinion at least. But if Sony does properly support the PSVR 2, it is going to bring a ton of value to the entire VR industry. Literally every segment of it will improve. And we won't really notice this year, I'm guessing next year and the year after that. And the PSVR 2 is a system that's not focusing so much on mass adoption and these mobile games games, it's instead focusing on really good quality software that looks good to the people that are buying it. But yeah, PSVR 2 launched today. Sorry I don't have a PSVR 2 video for you guys. I just ended up buying a unit, so I'm getting it at the same time as everyone else, which is today, but I will have a full video up soon, probably this weekend. But okay, but enough industry talk, my head kind of hurts. I told you this was a crazy episode, and this story kind of went everywhere when it first broke, and it's for good reason. Basically, this person, Hex, was planning to travel to the US from the UK. Of course, they then applied for a travel visa, and in response, got a letter stating that they are now permanently ineligible for admission to the United States because of activity they partook in virtual reality. See, Hex makes a living making adult content in VR, mostly from streaming from within VR chat. And apparently, the US government deemed their activities as engaging in making them completely ineligible to enter the United States. Now, whatever your opinion regarding the situation, this is interesting. The US government straight up accepts that activity within VR is just as valid as actions taken within physical reality, which brings up a lot of really weird questions in the future. Just, I don't know, we got a very weird future in general, especially thinking about legal and moral questions like this. And in my opinion, this is extremely overboard. No laws were broken in either country. It just sounds more like the State Department completely doesn't understand VR, but we're kind of used to it at this point, and it's something that we're not going to get rid of. Hex says that they are working to hopefully overturn the decision, which looks like it may be possible. Okay, well, since it's been a while, make sure to leave a question of the week down below and I'll answer one of them next Newsday. But now it's time that I talk about the channel and Tuesday Newsday. And if you don't want to hear about this, then go click on this video. It's a good one, I promise. But otherwise, to you guys, so I'm sorry it's been a while since the last Tuesday Newsday. I really wasn't happy with the tone and direction that this series was going down. I mean, from my original vision, Tuesday Newsday started as a joke, actually. There were 3 or 4 meme breaks and I was just making fun of the whole VR industry. And then people started taking TN seriously, and then I ended up taking it seriously too. But somewhere along the line, I think I got a little too serious. So I took a little break for the past month from this series, and I think you can tell how refreshed I am now. Like, this is probably one of my favorite episodes ever, even though it's really depressing. But I'm also gonna say that in the future, I'm only gonna be making Tuesday Newsdays or Wednesday or Thursday or Saturday, whatever, if there's actually things to talk about. I want people to know that every time there's that little TN logo on a thumbnail, that it's gonna be worth a watch, even if the title isn't something that directly appeals to you. But I'm still gonna be having fun and experimenting with this formula. I love Tuesday Newsday, and taking it away made me realize how much a lot of other people do too. And I guess I also want to take a moment to say how much I really, really appreciate you guys, and I want to thank you for being here for now the 160th episode of Tuesday Newsday. I really appreciate it, and I feel incredibly beyond lucky to be able to ramble on about the thing I find the most passion in. So yeah, so many fun videos are on their way. Tuesday Newsday is back, baby, and streams are officially coming back to Twitch next week. Let's have a good year. And also, lots of really awesome behind the scenes content is being posted on Patreon, just as a huge thanks to the people that make this channel possible, and also big thanks to my Omegas. Okay, well, you know how it is. Don't forget to like this video if you loved it, subscribe if you want more of this, and hit that freaking bell if you just can't live without it. Much love, Thrill out.